Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Abdullah Khalid and I'm going to be discussing about the American Revolution. So let's talk about the background first. During the 16th century, around 1500 to 1600, European settlement started in America. English, French, and Spanish started living together. Around 1700, wars started between English and French, in which English drove French out of America. Around 1750, English drove others out of America as well. English made 13 different colonies around the coast, in which Massachusetts and Pennsylvania were the most important one because the revolution started from there. Local assemblies were made from these colonies. So let's talk about the causes of revolution. There were basically two causes of revolution. The first one was agricultural policy, and the second, the industrial policy. So let's talk about the agricultural policy first. Agricultural land was owned by English aristocrats. People living there had no choice but to give rent to English who were living a wealthy life in Britain. Exports like sugar, cotton, tobacco were allowed only to Britain only. The second one is industrial policy. People living cannot start their own industries like iron, textile, etc. There was high import duties. Imports and exports were allowed from British ships only. So even if they want to export or import to other countries, they cannot. So let's talk about the phases of revolution. The first, Sugar Act 1764. The British Parliament passed the Sugar Act in 1764. It provided for a strongly enforced tax on sugar, molasses, and other products imported into the American colonies from non-British Caribbean sources. This act was also called the Plantation Act or the Revenue Act. On 22nd March 1765, British Parliament finally passed the Stamp Act or Duties in American Colonies Act. It required colonies to pay taxes on every page of printing paper they used. The tax also included fees of playing cards, dice, and even newspapers. The reaction in the colonies was very immediate. So what was the reaction of the colonists? They made the slogan, "No taxation without representation." The Cotton Act 1765. The Cotton Act stated that the Great Britain would house its soldiers in American barracks and public houses, and if the soldiers outnumbered colonial housing, they would be quartered in inns, alehouses, barns, other buildings, etc. Townshend was to help people pay the expenses involved in governing the American colonies. Parliament passed the Townshend Acts, which initiated tax on glass, lead, paint, paper, and tea. The Boston Tea Party was a political protest that occurred on 16 December 1773 at Griffin's Wharf in Boston, Massachusetts. American colonists went to Boston Port and dumped all crates of tea in the harbor, at which English got angry and closed the Boston Port. Representatives of 13 colonies met as a group called as First Continental Congress. Delegates from 12 of Britain's 13 American colonies met to discuss America's future under growing British aggression that made the decision to boycott English goods. The Battle of Lexington and Concord were the first battle of American Revolutionary War. The battle was fought between British soldiers who wanted to take away the colonists' weapons and to arrest John Hancock and Samuel Adams on the way to Concord, an American colonist, on 19 April 1775. The Second Continental Congress was a meeting of delegates from 13 different colonies in America that united in American Revolutionary War. The Congress was creating a new country it first named United Colonies and in 1776 renamed United States of America, which now we know. This war was effectively ended in surrender of the British at Yorktown 1781 and peace was signed at Paris in 1783. The Treaty of Paris. The Treaty of Paris was signed by US and British representatives on 3rd September 1783, ending the war on the American Revolutionary War based on a 1782 preliminary treaty. The agreement recognized US independence and granted the US significant western territory. So this was the basic summary of American Revolution, in which we talked about the background, the causes of revolution, the phases of revolution, and the Battle of Concord, the first and second Continental Congress meeting, and in the last, the Treaty of Paris. So in my opinion, I would say that the American Revolution was necessary because even if they won't start their aggression or their first move, then the Americans would be just like slaves of British English, and which is not a good thing. So that's all. I hope you like it, and thank you so much.